Hello world! My name is Sammy. My stage name is thisissami. You can find me at thisissami.net. Sammy is spelled S-A-M-I. I make electronic dance music and I loop it live. It's all improvised. I started producing electronic dance music and I was too much of a perfectionist to get the sounds I wanted properly. So I started doing improvised live looping because it just had to go with the flow.
Hey Sammy, what kind of gear do you use for your setup?
So I use Ableton Live Session View as a glorified live looper. It's controlled with a whole bunch of controllers. I got an APC-20 as the main brain, an Ovation Launchpad as my drum loop controller. Then I use an Ovation Remote SL25 as my main keyboard. A pad control as an alternative keyboard running alternative firmware. All that routes through a Chaos Pad Quad, which is my effects unit. And I've also got an audio interface with a monotron and vocals and whatever instruments I want that I can loop as well.
Alright man, second year in a row. How'd you like year 2 at the Northwest Loop Fest?
They were fun, man. They were fun. It was, last time was my first time really getting to play a show with other loopers.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really cool just to see the wide variety of stuff. Last year and this year, I've been just blown away by how creative people are and how just varied all the technical and stylistic approaches are. It's like we all share this thing where we loop things live, but the approaches and the products are so varied, and it's all really inspiring and really just awesome to see all this different perspective.
All right, so let's talk specifically about you for a while.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, going into the different rooms, what's it like for you doing your style of looping and going from room to room to room? How do you deal with the different issues and trying to get a good performance out of yourself and keeping in a good headspace?
Yeah. So for me, what I do is improvised. I don't have anything set. I don't know what I'm going to do ahead of time. The biggest challenge for me really tends to be with basses, because more often than not, I don't have a good monitor for the bass. So the way I deal with that to know if my bass is actually good or not is I set the level where I think it should be, then I run out into the audience, see what it sounds like there, and run back in.
Okay.
So in Portland, in the Analog Theater, once I got some sub-bass stuff, it was actually quite a challenge. I couldn't tell if it was there or not, and I soloed the channel just to hear if it was there, and the sound guy was like, "That's coming from downstairs," and then I stopped it, and it was just confusing. I mean, it took a while to actually figure out what was going on.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. It's the biggest challenge outside of that, or probably the grander challenge, is can I keep the groove going? Because it's all improvised, right? So, and I have trained with before. It hasn't happened in the past year or so,
right?
As I've improved and gotten better at what I do. But often on stage, I'll have this thing going, and I'll be like, "Oh, what do I do next?" I'm just blanking on ideas.
Sure.
And it's that's really the bigger challenge, is just figuring out how do I keep it going, because I try. My goal always is to keep a crowd dancing the entire time I'm on stage.
Right.
Just making that happen. That's the whole essence of my show, I guess. Can I keep the crowd dancing?
What type of growth have you done, and what are your gear changes from last year to this year?
Cool. Okay. So there's 2 big gear changes since last year. The first is I now have a dedicated drums controller, by which I mean the Novation Launchpad, which I use to control my bank of drums. So I have both ready-to-go beats, like let's say a house beat or a techno beat. It's just I can play that on its own and it'll get a crowd going. And I also have parts of beats, so just a boom, 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 or just a tss, 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 tss. So I have lots of different kinds of that.
Sure.
Sort of I build them up together. So having a dedicated controller with really easy buttons is really nice for that. The other big change is I now have a stand system that I built for my gear. I always have my gear in the same spot. It's always at the perfect height, so I don't hurt my back. I played a 2.5-hour set in Vancouver once where I just used a low table and my back killed me for the next couple days. So that's been a nice change to always just know that it'll be good.
Right.
And I have everything super accessible. In terms of growth, last year when I played was actually the very beginning of my current setup, where I had most of the same controllers and most of the same synths. So that was my first time really getting into it. And the past year has just been really getting comfortable with that system and being super intuitive at it, not having to second guess or think about what I need to do certain things. So at this point, I feel super comfortable with my setup, and I'm a lot better moving through ideas and phases, and just having a more thematic journey.
What type of changes do you see coming for the future?
So there's three big changes. The first big change is the controller that I use for my synth. I'm just using the default mapping, and it's only controlling about a third of the parameters in my synth. Okay. So I want to develop my own control mapping so that I can actually access all the rest of the capabilities of the synthesizer. It's been actually 2 years since I got this synth. It's called F-Expansion Synth Squad. And it's a strobe specifically that I use. It's an amazing software synth. Any of you guys who want a really good software synth that's modeled beautifully, F-Expansion Synth Squad. So I've been just getting deep into that in the past 2 years, and now I'm at the point where I'm ready to go past just the third that I have access to.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, I sang a little bit. I freestyled in Portland, and I had some vocals going earlier tonight, and I just want to get more comfortable doing that. So I'm planning on buying a headset mic, so I have a continual just mic right there ready to go. I'm very comfortable improvising on stage, but vocals is something that I still get nervous about.
Sure.
So it's rare to see me freestyle on stage. I do it at home all the time, but not on stage. So I want to get more comfortable in that.
Hey, we got that on tape.
Yeah, you can. I also have a vocoder that I want to control like Cuneo to let me do a lot of interesting effects of voice. So that's another big part of the next year. And last but not least, I've been a drummer for 15 years, and I have a drum sampler now, or I've had it for a while, called Battery 3, and I want to integrate live drumming into my show. I want to move away from using drum loops into a purely live jam show. But yeah, it just all takes time. Every component takes A, time to set it up so that the routing works great, and B, takes time to really get comfortable at it. So those are the three big areas that I'm kind of working on. I don't know what's going to happen first, but one of them's going to happen first, and the others will follow. Yeah, so I guess my musical background began with my parents, who had dreams and aspirations of becoming musicians, but not the financial means of becoming so when they were younger. And they wanted their kids to get to have this musical opportunity. So when I was 3 or 4 years old, my parents signed me up for keyboard lessons and piano lessons. So when I was a kid, I learned piano, but being a spoiled kid who did not realize what was truly good for him, I was like, no, I don't want to play piano. So in 6th grade, I rebelled and I switched to drums, which was what I really wanted to do, and became a drummer. And in retrospect, as an older person now, I realize that I could have just kept playing piano and just learned the drums on top of that, and that would have done wonders for my skills today. But did not really realize that back in middle school. But yeah, so high school, I started playing with a group of friends of mine in a band, and we did fairly well for ourselves. We bust down a street once or twice, and both times got offers to play gigs at venues, and we used to play everything, a lot of events related to our school. Me and one of my closest friends, this is before I started getting into improvisation. He was a multi-instrumentalist who played 9 or 10 different instruments. We used to just jam out together, me on the drums and him on piano or guitar or whatever. We used to play a lot of school functions, just the two of us doing fusion world jazz music. And then he kept trying to push me to learn to improvise with other instruments, and I kept being like, no, I can't do it. But then a year or two later in college, I started actually jamming out for the first time on whatever piano I'd come across, or a friend's violin, or what have you. And started realizing, wait, I can do this improv thing. At the end of college, I took a couple classes in music. So they were just electives. I took one on the tonal system and a couple of composition classes. One that was electroacoustic specifically, so learning a lot about sound production and field recordings and how to manipulate them. And one that was on just composition in general, but moving away from typical. It was a lot more freeform, let's just put it that way. I went to my first music festival. A friend of mine from the radio station at Harvard was like, hey, Sammy, you're the person I know who's most into electronic music. Do you want one of these 2 free tickets I have to go to this music festival? And I was like, yeah, why not? And then went there, was blown away that this culture existed. I felt at home for the first time in my life, where I could be a hippie and it was normal. Yeah, it was just on the last day there. I was this guy just playing electro music and just rocking my socks off, and daytime, with all these beautiful people around, just having a great time dancing. Everybody was so happy, and that's when I decided, like, that's what I want to do. I want to tour around, go into festivals, and make people dance. And I spent the next 2 years kind of saying that's what I was going to do and figuring out how to do it, and then the next 3 years after that, which is the past 3 years, actually doing it. And this past summer has been the summer where I finally lived my dream. I traveled to 8 festivals throughout the summer and got to rock out some dance floors. And now I'm here, just played the Northwest Loop Fest, so continuing that festival tour now, but in a very different setting. It's a lot more live looping oriented and very cool to be around.
What do you think is the best advice you can give someone?
You want to find the means, the lowest barrier means to getting the idea out of your head and into a sound system. And what that means is work with the skills you already have. If you play guitar and you feel really comfortable doing that, and you want to bring that into the looping world, then get something where all you have to do is press a button, and magically your skills that you already have already turned into this looping thing. And there's lots of loop pedals that'll make it easy for that. If you don't play, let's say you play synthesizer, and you have a hardware synth. Well, maybe you should get the same exact thing, like a loop pedal that you just send your audio to. If you're a music producer and you've been working with Ableton a lot, well, you know what? Ableton Session View is a great looper, and you can. What I'm trying to say is, the tools you know is what you should be working with, unless you hate the tools you know. If you hate the tools, you're gonna go with something else. But really, you take advantage of your skills, because that'll make it a lot easier to get into looping.
Why do you make the music the way you make your music?
Let's play. I think we have this beautiful world we live in. It's a very dark world as well, but there's a beautiful side to it. What makes it magical is the interactions you can have with both your environment and with other people. And play is one of the best ways to interact, because it's fun-loving, it's very light. You get to just explore things with people. And that's my approach to life in general. Both when it comes to challenges, let's say I'm a software developer, let's say I have a software challenge, I like to approach it in a very playful way, trying different things and not being stuck to any kind of result, and just seeing what works and what doesn't. That's my approach to relationships, be they business, friendships, romantic relationships, whatever it might be. And this is also my approach to music. It's a very playful one. I like to explore and take my time to just experience sound, see what it feels like, see what it sounds like. I don't like to stick to the tonal scale system. In fact, outside of that one class I took in college, I've entirely avoided learning the tonal scale system so that I don't get stuck in that mindset. I do plan in the next couple of years to actually take a proper course in it and really learn about how harmonics progressions work and whatnot, because that can really take my music to the next level. But until I have a really solid foundation in just pure play, I don't want to do that, because I feel like that'll pigeonhole me into that kind of mindset, which I don't want to happen. And I find with my music, if I don't have that kind of playful mentality, and I have an idea in my head that I want to make happen, and it's not this purely exploratory approach, that's when I have my shows that I'm not very happy with, and I get frustrated on stage, and I get anxious on stage. And it's because I'm not being playful. It's because I'm trying to make something happen, or because there's a sound that I want, I'm not getting it, and it just completely ruins my experience of playing. Whether or not the crowd enjoys it is a whole other thing, but those are also the shows where I'm no longer lively and no longer smiling and happy on stage, and I think that makes a big difference. I think having the performer be very excited about what they're doing and seeing just a bundle of energy up there, I think that's really infectious in the room. And I've certainly gotten that feedback from others, like, oh, you have such great stage presence, and that happens when I'm playful.
Yeah, what is it about your music that you think is important?
I think it's the playfulness, really. Just this attitude of, I don't know what's going to happen, I'm just going to have fun, and we'll see where it goes. And I think the crowd usually gets that that's what I'm doing. And it's different from what most people do. Most people have a very set plan of what they're trying to do. And it's nice to have something totally different, something totally out there. And I often screw up on stage, but the crowd is very forgiving because they know that I'm just trying things out, and they can see me like noodling away on my sounds. They get to see sounds develop, and then all of a sudden I hit this thing that sounds really cool, and then I loop that, and the crowd's into it because they think it's cool too. Because usually, if one person thinks something is cool, a bunch of other people will as well. And so, getting to see me create all these things in front of them, and getting to see me explore and screw up, and then finally hit something awesome, and then go with it, and just keep going with the flow. That's something that people have picked up on, and I don't see it happen that often.
What is it you want people who see your show to walk away from? If you want one phrase to be reverberating through their brain as they're going away, what is it that you want them to hear in their head?
Wow. Either that, though, until you said what phrase, my answer was I just want there to be a big smile on their face.
All right. All right. Thanks so much, Sammy. Really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.